Although there are ways to create really complex shapes and artwork inside of Adobe Illustrator, some of the most useful tools happen to be the ones that create the most simple of artwork. And so in this movie, I'm going to be exploring how to create basic shapes inside of Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to try to explain to you why creating these basic shapes is such a useful thing inside of Illustrator, especially when it comes to a web design process. So I'm going to create a new document by going to File, New. And once I create this new document, it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. In this case, I'm going to do 1024 by 768, and I'll just hit OK. I'm going to then open up all of the shape tools. I'm going to do that by coming right underneath the type tool. I'll click and hold to open up this toolbox, and then I'm just going to separate these into their own floating tool panel by clicking this little arrow. Then I'll move them out just like this. And so I'll select the rectangle tool. With the rectangle tool selected, I can actually come out here and start to develop a lot of different assets pretty easily. And so if I click and I do something like 468 by 60 and hit OK, that's a standard web banner size. I've just created a small mock-up for a web banner. Or if I click and do 300 by 250, again, another standard web banner size. You can come here, do 125 by 125. It's a small graphic size for the web, an advertisement. And again, we'll do 125 by 125. Hit it again. Puts it in play. If I want to line that up, I can kind of move it just like that. So now I've got a graphic here, two on the right, one in the middle. Pretty easy stuff. I just created a web banner package essentially right there, which I can then design on top of. I could also do something like buttons. So let's do a rounded rectangle here. And I'll click somewhere over here to the right. And I'll do something like 200 pixels wide by, let's do 45 pixels tall. Corner radius of about 6. Anywhere between 4 and 8 is going to be good for rounded rectangles for buttons and things like that. So go ahead and hit OK. And that creates a button for me. And if I want to do another one, that's easy enough. Just click, hit OK. And I'm just lining these up with Smart Guides. If you don't have Smart Guides turned on, just go to View and enable Smart Guides, and they'll come right back on for you. And then once you're out here drawing, you'll see these little green lines appear, and you can easily line things up and create them. So there's a few buttons that I've created. I can also do some round buttons. So let's line these up here. And let's do 100 by 100. There we go. And line this up. There we go. 100 by 100. There we go. And so you can see just how quick you can start to mock things up simply by employing these basic shapes that you might have otherwise thought were just too primitive to use in anything. But the faster you get with creating these shapes, the faster you can get into the creative process of adding things to these shapes to make them look like something. And then you can hand these off to a developer or code them yourself into working HTML and CSS objects, which can then be interacted with on the web. It's a really cool process if you think about it, because you go from these little skeleton pieces that we've created into a full-blown working prototype in a very short amount of time. But until you can get this speed and precision down of creating these graphics, you may not be able to crank through this process quite as fast. So learn to use these tools. The point and click method is by far the best in terms of creating web graphics, in my opinion, because if I were to try to utilize the rectangle tool to create something and I had to click and drag, I would have to wait until the pixel count got just perfect, and I couldn't really get that each and every time. I may have to go up and change some stuff in the control panel. And so using this point, click, and entering in values method is a great way to create precise wireframe graphics really quickly and really easily. So hopefully by now you have a better understanding of the basic shape tools that you have available to you inside of Adobe Illustrator, and then how to use those to quickly create these skeleton pieces, which we can then start to throw a little bit of creativeness on top of to create some really stunning web graphics.